So GE this year turns 125 years old. We are actually the only company that is still one of the originals on the Dow Jones. When you can see here, you can see that we have a long and deep history of innovation, from the light bulb to the power station to even the TV. But GE today is really a global conglomerate made up of businesses across multiple industries, ranging from aviation to power to healthcare. We make very big, complex, sophisticated, heavy equipment that powers, cures, and moves the world. We have over 300,000 employees globally, and we operate in 165 countries. The newest of these businesses is GE Digital. And so we have 26,000 employees, 3.6 billion. And we sit alongside these businesses, some of which have been operating for over 50 years, in some cases over 100. So in 2015, GE decided to create GE Digital, which really was to focus on making a reality of us being a digital industrial company. So when you look at the basis of the creation of GE Digital, next slide, I'm having trouble with the clicker, was really the vision for the industrial internet, which we coined in the 2012 timeframe. And the idea is that by connecting minds and machines to our equipment, that we be able to drive unprecedented levels of industrial productivity. And so core to our strategy is really three prongs. The first is GE for GE. The second is GE for our customers, and the third is GE for the world. So our intent is that what we build for ourselves inside of our company becomes the first proof point for our customers. That we're going to help our customers solve their biggest problems, some of which we share with them. And that we build all of that on top of Predix, an industrial platform that is available to all of the world to use. So this has been quite the journey for us. I would say it started in the 2008, 2009 timeframe, when the company started to realize that software and analytics was going to continue to have a really important part of our evolving business model. And so we commenced a search in 2010. We hired Bill Rue, who's actually a Cisco alumni, to begin our efforts around figuring out what this journey was going to be. And so we established the Software Center of Excellence in 2012 in San Ramon, California, which is in the East Bay of San Francisco. That's actually when I joined this journey. I spent the first 11 years of my career in GE Aviation, starting in HR and our manufacturing facilities, and joined Bill in 2012, where we began to hire talent from Silicon Valley. We incubated it out in California and began to partner that team with our biggest services businesses to tackle services productivity. This became the initial proof points within the company of the power of what this could all be. Simultaneous to that, we began to reimagine IT. So after 10 to 15 years of very limited investment, as well as outsourcing most of our technical capability, we began to really invest and start to pull that work back. In addition to that, we realized that selling that heavy, complicated equipment is really different than selling and commercializing software. Much more focused on outcomes, and we began to also hire folks that had that in their background. So we had these three simultaneous activities, technology, commercial, as well as IT, that were going on disparately inside the company, everyone sort of chasing the shiny ball. So in 2015, we announced the creation of GE Digital. And what we did is we brought together those organizations. We also made the decision to hire chief digital officers in each of our business verticals. So there's a chief digital officer in power, in healthcare, aviation, et cetera. We've also since then made other two very big moves to try to create additional momentum around all of this. We've decided to pull all of our IT function into GE Digital and set the expectation that the products that we build and we utilize inside of our company needs to be at the same standard as we would expect for our customers. And as you can see here, we've actually rebranded IT to digital technology, or what we call DT. In addition to that, we've continued to bring additional resources to get the most scale and benefit. So GE Digital, at the end of the day, is part digital, part industrial, which is the exciting part and also the really hard part. We did it to simplify our structure, to bring these disparate teams together, to work against a common agenda. We did it to create horizontal capability, meaning capability that the entire company could benefit from versus each business doing their own thing. The basis of it is shared ownership between GE Digital and the businesses. And we really wanted to get speed and acceleration at a time that our markets and innovation is going faster than ever. So when you look at the framework that we use, this is what it is. You see our businesses across the top. The CEO and Chief Digital Officer of GE Digital is Bill Rue. And we really focus the core part of that business on the horizontal products that we sell externally. This would be Predix. This would be asset performance management. Then we have chief digital officers in each of our industrial businesses. They focus on the vertical or the industry-specific applications. They're really intended to be productive disruptors and to help shape the culture of the businesses. We also have our chief information officer, or our CIO, who does report into GE Digital. Similar to the core part of the business, he focuses on the enterprise-wide horizontal applications and services that the entire company utilizes. And we still have CIOs in each of the businesses. And we really want to think of them as the chief automation officer. They're that process innovator of how do we begin to reimagine the way that we're going to get work done inside of the company, again, to be a proof point for what we're going to do with our customers. So the way that this is structured is almost as an L shape. You've got the focus on the vertical of digital to stand the business up. But we also are trying to get the most out of our scale. And so when you look at it, you have structure aligned, you have funding aligned, you have the metrics, you have the talent, and most importantly, you have the incentives to drive that mutual capability, all of which aligns to GE Digital. So there are a lot of talent implications of the digital transformation that all of us are facing, the first of which is skill mix. And what I would say is where most of us are now as we talk to other companies is that we realize that there's just skills and capabilities that we don't have that we need to go seek, as the poll showed earlier today. But there's a big part of our workforce that has some of the capabilities, but they're missing a lot of the capabilities, in many cases missing the mindset. But where we also think that this is heading is maybe a whole new category of IoT jobs are going to get created. How fast, we don't exactly know yet, but this combination of sort of the physical and the digital world. The availability of talent. There's around 300,000 IoT developers with 4.5 million expected by 2020 and exponential increases at that point in time. And then what's going to happen is all of us are going to be looking for this talent. And so while in these early days there might not be as much competition, there's going to be increasing amounts of competition as this continues to take off. So when you look at this, it requires a completely different mindset if you're a legacy or an industrial company. It requires being far more sophisticated about talent acquisition, that your brand may not play as nicely as you try to attract this talent, and you're going after passive candidates that at any point in time have 3 to 4 job offers. It requires compensation schemes. I will tell you that this has probably been one of the hardest things that we've had to grapple with. How you compensate these folks may be different than the schemes you have inside your company, and you have to begin to think about it differently. The structure is expected to be flatter, greater access to leaders, and really a different mindset from the 1950s hierarchical structure that many of our legacy companies have been built on. Learning and development is expected to be at your fingertips in a YouTube-type style, and is an ongoing process that you can do while you're on the elliptical or waiting in an airport. And lastly, when you think about career growth and development, it's less about climbing a corporate ladder. It's even in some cases not even about getting into a leadership job. It's about being able to grow your technical capabilities and thinking about it more over the course of sort of Venn diagrams than a specific ladder. All of which are very big changes for most of us that have been around for a long time. So when you think about this digital transformation and what many of us are going through, we've learned a lot of things. The first thing is, it's really hard. And I would argue that some of what has made the IoT space maybe a little bit slower is some of the things that we're talking about here. And so it was about a year ago that I pulled my team off site and we went behind closed doors and we said, why is this so hard? Like, why are we having such a hard time? And what we realized is that the operating principles when it comes to talent, to organizations, to culture are really different for an industrial or plug-in legacy company from that of the tech or the digital space. You know, when I was in GE Aviation, I spent time trying to manage balanced practices across a large existing workforce. A bad year was 3% attrition. It's really different when you're buying, competing, growing, building talent, the very, very best. And you're really focused on that. And you know what? You don't expect that they're going to stay with you forever. And if they do, it's probably not a great sign either. And so some of the lessons that we have learned is that when you have a very strong existing culture, when you insert new people that think differently, like the right-hand side of the page, they start from the industrial or the mindset of where your company is. And the truth is that is slow, it's painful, and it's incremental at a time that everything is moving at warp speed. And so part of what we've had to lean into is the fact that this is transformational change, which means a lot of the rules that we've applied for most of our careers around leading change are different. And part of what we've had to do is really to move the full inertia of the entire 300,000 employees at GE is to do some things differently that cross all of our population. The first of which, we move from our values to GE beliefs. If you read the beliefs, they look a lot like the principles or tenets you would find in any technology company. We created something called FastWorks, which is based on the Lean Startup book that Eric Ries wrote. That is really how you go about building a minimally viable product, what probably most of you would view as the basic principles of agile methodology, as a mechanism to create a common language and understanding of how this space works, how this operates. And we are probably most well known for and documented in terms of our people processes and leadership. And we actually threw out our entire performance management system and replaced with something called performance development, or PD, where it starts with you as an individual, that you get insights from your colleagues, and it's really driven by you versus the heavy, annual, intensive process that we had that had been in existence for over 20 years. And what we believe ends up happening at the end of the day is you pull these two cultures together and you meet more in the middle versus trying to have the digital folks start from the industrial perspective. So what I would like to end with is, when we first started this effort, 90% of all candidates, when we reached out to them, didn't know that GE built any form of software, when technically speaking, we may have been the 14th largest software company at the time. But what has been true, and the reason why folks have joined us and why people continue to stay with us, is really reflected in this purpose statement. We are defining what digital means in an industrial world, translating data to outcomes, and revolutionizing GE to improve how the world works. Together, we work to build the future. I imagine, by virtue that you are sitting in the audience today, that this statement may resonate with you and what your company's purpose is. And if that's the case, I would have you take a look at the Internet of Things Talent Consortium. GE is a member. And it's a group of really digital transformation pioneers that are beginning to lean into, through our hard-earned experiences, of both the challenges and also the massive opportunities of what it means in this entire space. We have booth here, and I would encourage you to take a look at that if you either aspire to be a pioneer in the space or consider yourself to be that today. So with that, thank you very much.